This is very much a science experiment. ... If I were to take a sip of my Truly every time there was a ... I think I would be very drunk. This book is garbage. Those slippers are likely to be the death of you, but that dress, the death of me. Can you imagine, like, you're just in your jammies and he's just like, oh, dang girl, that dress looks good on you. Like 70 pages left and it will be pure bliss to be done of this terrible, horrendous book. Honeydews are gonna be forever ruined for me. I lost brain cells reading this. The generation of TikTokers, that like people are on TikTok and BookTok that are recommending this, like, our society is doomed. Hey everyone, it's Lexie. So I'm here today with a video that I'm very excited to embark on. And basically it's going to be my raw reaction to reading From Blood and Ash by Jennifer L. Armentrout. So I am not on BookTok or anything, like I don't even have a TikTok, but I know this is a well-loved and popular book on that platform. And it has very mixed reviews, so people either really love it or people really hate it. So I feel like this one, because it is very polarizing, I thought it would be one to kind of film my like raw reaction throughout reading this. So this video will contain obviously spoilers for this book, so if you don't want to be spoiled, then please don't watch this video. But yeah, I thought because of how polarizing and about how like both extremes in terms of how people have liked this book or disliked it, I thought it would be fun to do like my raw reaction. And it says here it is a captivating and action-packed, addictive and unexpected fantasy perfect for fans of Sarah J Maas. And I will say, like, I do like the Sarah J Maas books, like they're like my guilty pleasure. So this can either go really well and I find another guilty pleasure read, or it can go really bad. I don't know, I haven't, we'll just have to go and wait and see. But I thought this would be just a fun video to do, so either it's going to become my new low-key like guilty pleasure read, or I might need therapy after reading this, so we shall see, who knows. But I've heard this one is also very steamy, but I'm very curious because in reading the synopsis I felt like it was very dramatic. So it's like basically it's like, the life of the maiden is solitary, never to be touched, never to be looked upon, never to be spoken to, never to experience pleasure. And then it goes also here, so because a maiden has a heart and a soul and longing and like all those things where it's very, very repetitive like that. I'm very curious to see if that is also kind of present in the writing, or if this was just kind of done for dramatic purposes to draw people in. I've never read anything by this author, so this is very much a science experiment. I am clearly a PhD engineering student because I'm like, this would be a good experiment to do, and I haven't really come up with my hypothesis yet in terms of how I'm gonna feel. So yeah, we'll just have to put this to the test and see how this goes. So you can either see me kind of slowly, like, even though I know this is going to be a guilty pleasure read and maybe the quality will not be good, I either love it or, you know, this book will traumatize me for the rest of my life. So without further ado, let's get started. Alrighty guys, so before we actually dive into the vlog portion of this video, I want to preface this video with a disclaimer that please don't take offense to anything that I'm saying in here. You know, we're all entitled to our different opinions. So just because I either, I'm not spoiling it, either loved it or hated this book, like, take it with a grain of salt. We're all adults. We are entitled to have different opinions, and us kind of liking things differently and all that stuff, like, that's what makes us all unique and fun. So yeah, like I said, take this with a grain of salt with what I'm saying about this. But yeah, without further ado, let's get started. Alrighty, so I read to page 57 yesterday, and I have a lot of mixed things about this book. First of all, the writing is a little bit annoying. She uses a lot of like the ... dots, which I've heard are called ellipsoids, I want to say, if I remember correctly, but she uses a lot of them in like weird places that I wouldn't put them if I was writing that. But I don't really use a lot of ... dots, which is like my one like pet peeve so far. But Poppy has gone to like this like underground like bar type place where there's people dancing and gambling and getting it on, and she's like, oh, like I didn't know what to expect coming here. And she's like, this part made me laugh too, because it was like, yeah, like this was another one. My attention lingered on the door long after it closed. Was that another reason why I'd come tonight to ... to experience pleasure with someone of my choosing? And then here's another one here. If I could, I could if I wanted to. I'd overheard conversations between the ladies in wait who weren't expected to remain untouched. According to them, there were ... many things a woman could do that brought pleasure while retaining their purity, which is annoying. Like, I think that like a lot of like ... are like literally on every single page, which I think it just makes it dramatic and takes it away, like takes away from the writing, I want to say. So I'm not a fan of that. And like the naivety of Poppy is really annoying. Like she's like, oh, I'm gonna go to this like kind of like underground like thing that's known for being like gambling and, you know, other promiscuous stuff going on, and she's like, oh, like I wasn't expecting this. And then she ends up crossing paths with Hawk, who doesn't know who she is, and basically she's like, I just happened to like throw on whatever I was wearing, so I'm wearing my like night dress. And they like mentioned that she's like wearing that, and then she was like, oh, I'm wearing something that's so revealing. I'm like, I don't understand, because a couple pages earlier you said you were in your basically your night dress, like your pajamas, and then you're like, oh, this is too revealing. So we shall see. We already had like a steamy scene within like the first like 30 pages, so was not expecting that, but we shall see. I feel like with this one, it's either going to be like a guilty pleasure and I can kind of look past the flaws because I do like it'll be a guilty pleasure one, or I'm going to hate it. I don't think there's anywhere in between. So yeah, I think so far we're off to a bit of a rocky start. And that's like another thing too, is like you get a lot of like info dumps, and I'm still very confused about this world because it's just like in between all the ... and Poppy being so naive and being like, oh, I shouldn't have come here, and then I didn't know what goes behind, like what is going on in this place. I'm just so naive. But like you get a lot of info dumpy like dumps in the beginning, and it's very, very confusing to understand, so we'll see if that gets better. But yeah, like I said, so far we're off to kind of a bit of a rocky start. Alrighty everyone, I'm at the page 106 mark, and like it's okay right now. Like I'm still feel like we're very much kind of getting introduced to these, like this character and this world, and I feel like the plot building is very vague. Like I'm very confused. Like I still feel like they talk about Poppy being like ascended and how that is so important because it gets all these other people ascension, but she doesn't really explain like what that actually is, and they've introduced like the villain of this, but again I find that it's very vague in terms of what it's describing. Like it's a little confusing too. I feel like for the next like the last 50 pages that I just read, like not a lot really happened besides like there's these attacks occurring in the castle, and they think it is what are called Atlanteans, which were like this what they thought to be these like extinct like immortal things that can like pass for humans, that are like close to gods, and so they think that has something to tie in with that, and the what is called the Dark One, who wants to kind of take over the king and queens. But I don't know, like we'll see. Like I don't know, I'm still kind of very much undecided how I'm liking this so far. I feel like for being like almost a quarter of the way through now, like I still feel like, I don't know, I'm very confused because they have Poppy, like there's like two different sides of Poppy. There is one where she is determined she can like fight and defend herself, and then there's the very like naive side of Poppy that was just like, I felt like that was a contrast to how she has like developed this character as being someone who can like stand up for herself and all this stuff, but when it comes to like kind of more promiscuous things, she's like very naive, and she's like, oh, I don't know anything, and like that. So I'm like very conflicted with like the two different character traits that don't really go together, but we shall see. I do plan on reading a lot more outside today. It's beautiful outside. My boyfriend's gonna come over. We're gonna get some reading done too, so we'll see. You'll probably hear from me tomorrow about some reading updates, but yeah, like I said, I really don't know. But if you made like a drinking game out of all of the like dot dot dots, like I think you would be like pretty drunk within like one chapter. Like if I were to take a sip of my Truly every time there was a dot dot dot, I think I would be very drunk by the end of that chapter. So yeah, that's just like a writing style thing that is just, even from the beginning, I have found to be very annoying. Alrighty guys, so I'm at page 228 now, and I can officially say that this book is garbage. Like, I hate it so much for a number of reasons. The first one is the subtle racism that's in here, and at first I didn't pick up on it because I completely missed out on the skin color of this one character, but Tawny is Poppy's like lady in waiting, like takes care of her, and Hawk makes a comment about how like if she wasn't like forced to, you know, take care of you and be with you all the time, would she be your friend? And I'm like, that, and she's like, of course she would be, like she's my friend. And then I was like, wait a minute, that's like basically how people justified like slavery. And it was just like, well, she's my maid, like she cares of us, and she really cares about us. And it's like, does she really have a choice in that? So I was just like, holy smokes. And like a book that came out within the last few years, like I want to say this came out in, I don't know, 2021, 2020, I want to say. Let's see. Yeah, 2020. So it's a little, like that was a little iffy. And then just the writing is terrible. Like there's just like these random pauses within sentences, like the use of ellipses, like way too much. Like I said, if you did a drinking game with that, like you would be totally drunk. And Poppy as a character is just so annoying. She's very inconsistent. So she is either being like this, you know, I'm gonna fight all these like craven things and, you know, sneak out of the castle and be like this badass with a bow and arrow. And then on the other side, basically she's supposed to have basically up until like 6 till present day, she's been living this secluded, isolated life, and her personality doesn't reflect someone who's kind of been groomed to be in that environment. And then you have like this naive side of her that's like, oh, was my dress too like promiscuous? Like it's just my jammies that I sleep in. And it's just like really annoying. And I think I'm gonna say this now, but I think Hawk is the dark one. It like doesn't make sense because they like mention how he's really young and he got this position of being Poppy's like personal guard over over more qualified people. And it's like, yes, well, it was just like, yes, because history hasn't proven that people who are less qualified for the job and get the job over someone who's more like, who is like the most qualified person for this job, like, you know, great things have happened, really. So like that is like iffy, and like he's just like has such predatory behavior. Like even in the beginning, he like calls her princess because when they first meet in this like den, the room in like the den, like she asks him to like, you know, back away from her, and he's like, oh, you're so demanding, are you like a princess? And then that's how he got the name. And he's just like super cringy and just very predatory and just gives off like a lot of red flags. And I don't like, and I think like too is like part of like the draw in this is the like basically the idea of the maiden is someone who's pure, who's a virgin. And I think like that kind of just fetishizes virgins in general, just how this book is doing it, where she's kind of like this untouchable virgin, and that makes her desirable to Hawk in kind of a predatory way. And yeah, I find that like very cringy. Like this is also giving me Twilight vibes. When I was like 13, I read the first Twilight book. I did not like it. I didn't continue on with the series, but it's kind of giving me that possessive boyfriend vibe. And with the girlfriend in here, or the girl love interest, it's very dull. Like her life is just totally consumed by this predatory guy, which is just super cringy and creepy and just red flags everywhere. So I can say without a doubt that this book is terrible. The writing is bad, the characters are bad, there are a lot of red flags, and, you know, for like lack of consent and racism and like all these other things. And like I don't understand the hype, and I'm a little insulted that this book has been compared for like, oh, if you like Sarah J Maas, like that's an insult to Sarah J Maas, I think, because even though those books are flawed, like I feel like they're substantially better in terms of writing, in terms of everything. And yeah, like this is just so bad. Like I'm even at like almost at the halfway point, and I feel like nothing has happened. Like I'm very tempted to DNF this, but for the sake of this video, I will push through. But I just want to finish it now at this point because it's like just annoying. Like if I have to hear one more time about like Hawk's like, you know, crazy eyes, or Poppy like gasps or giggles or does all these things, like I am just like, this should be actually a crazy drinking game because you'd be drunk in like a minute. Basically, like if you just did it for ellipses alone, like sometimes there's 3 or 4 within like the same paragraph. Like it's just so bad. Like you could have a very fun drinking game out of this if you wanted to, but yeah, it's just so bad. Like let me grab my phone because I wrote down one of these, like one of the things he says to Poppy, and it's just bizarre. Alrighty, so I just want to like preface this by saying that he is like in this situation, Poppy is wearing her pajamas, basically the equivalent of what her pajamas are. And yeah, like goes like, the next time you go out, wear better shoes and thicker clothing. Those slippers are likely to be the death of you, but that dress, the death of me. Like, can you imagine, like you're just in your jammies and he's just like, oh dang girl, that dress looks good on you. And it's like, I don't know, it's really creepy. But and then she's like, oh, he's so thoughtful, he cares if I were to fall in my slippers. And it's just like, oh my god, this book like is terrible. And I don't understand the hype for this because I've been reading it and I don't want to finish it at this point. Like I just don't want to finish it, but for the sake of you guys, I will put myself through this trauma of this horribly written book for you guys. So we shall see, but I'm calling it now that Hawk is the dark one, which I think is just a ripoff of the Darkling, but you know, what do I know at the end of the day? Alrighty everyone, so you can tell I'm just wanting to get through this book and I'll just like finish it because it's so bad, because I read up until page 410 yesterday. So that shows how determined I have. Like 70 pages left and it will be pure bliss to be done of this terrible, horrendous book. So I've made like some notes here since I read a lot, so I was like, what am I need to make sure I remember what I'm going to talk about. But one of the main things, like one of my main criticisms, is the lack of world building, and there tends to be a lot of info dumping in particular. In this case, like there is this build up to this right, and this build up and all the characters are excited for it, but even when it happens, they don't explain what it is. Like Poppy goes off with Hawk and they do some promiscuous things, and then like you don't even see it. And so that's like another thing too, when she ascends, like they don't really explain what it is. And like for this most time, this world building is non-existent because the things that are going on within this world just aren't explained, and it is just so irritating because I'm like, nothing in this world is like, you know, explained to the reader. Like there is no world at all besides these randomly named places like Macedonia and Pompeii. Like I don't understand. And if Macedonia is cold all the time, like I don't, like it just does not make sense. And like Hawk is just such a predator. Like what he is doing with Poppy is like totally red, like a big red flag. And one of the things like I have here is that they start to like make out under a willow, and they're like, no one will see, and all this stuff. And he says he will they start to make out and says he will stop as she asks, but then he won't be able to. So basically he's saying, like, even if you are saying no throughout this whole thing, I will not stop myself and keep basically, you know, assaulting you even when you ask to, you know, like ask him to stop. Which nothing is more romantic than saying that, hey, even if you say no, I'm gonna still assault you. So what a man. And then like honeydews are gonna be forever ruined for me. Like, till the end of time, honeydew, melon will just be ruined, which is very disappointing because I will always think of this book, like, if I have, like, I love honeydew melon bubble tea, and I'm having it on the weekend because we're going out for ramen, but I'm like, I will forever think of honeydew when I think of this book. And yeah, it's just ruined, like, total gag. Like, I literally was just like, if there was a live reaction to me, I literally was just like, that is disgusting. Like, oh my god. And why is this book popular? Like, I do not get it. I do not get it. And basically, Poppy and Hawk are like, Poppy is sent to the capital because they think it's going to be safer for her there than at the castle she was staying at now. So Hawk is in charge of like a fleet of other guards getting her to there, and obviously he has other plans because we find out he's part of the dissenters or whatever they're called, and so he kills all the other guards except two other people, one of them being a like wolven, which has never been explained until now, and the guy who tried to kidnap her in the beginning, like, and this happens in between them like getting it on in the middle of an open space at night in the forest with other people around, which is a little sketchy, and there's giant rats running around, and I just think of Remy from Ratatouille. That's what I am picturing. But I just don't like they finally have sex, and he basically, it's like, his intentions, like, he obviously is using this sexual attraction as a way to kind of manipulate Poppy into her kind of being with him, and like, basically I like kind of see that as a form of rape because she is not consenting to his ulterior motives. Like, he is using her as a means to get to something else, which I'm not okay with at all. So this book is just horrible. Like, I'm so happy. Like, you can tell I want to get this book over with because I read quite a bit yesterday, and I'm like, I just need to get this done. Poppy is so annoying. The plot twist has not been very exciting, and this book is a red flag of what a relationship should not be like. So yeah, do not understand the hype for this book because it is probably the worst book I've read in a really long time. Alrighty everyone, so it is with great happiness that I announced that I finished this monstrosity of a book. It was horrible. If you guys couldn't tell, like I said, like, I could go either way, but I could, like, this book was just garbage. It was so bad. So the last 70 pages were a whirlwind because apparently the Atlanteans are kind of like vampires, and they capture Poppy, like, and I was right about Hawk being the dark one, and in an efforts to save her, she has to suck his blood, which provides like an arousing thing. So she goes from literally hating him to being like, oh, like, I'm so attracted to you, to then her stabbing him, to then Hawk biting and sucking Poppy's blood, which then leads to a major arousal for both of them. So despite her saying that she literally stabbed him and hating him, they then two have sex again, and then they decide that they're gonna get married. So this book was trash. It was garbage. It was just horrible, and I think I lost brain cells reading this. Like, I've worked up, like, being a PhD student, I worked up a lot of knowledge and built up my brain muscle for this book to take away a lot of brain cells. Like, it was horrendous. I do not know why this book is popular. It is just terrible. There's no plot. This is basically turned into kind of like a trashier version of Twilight, which is already pretty trashy to begin with. And yeah, it was horrible. I do not understand why people like this book, why this was the winner. You can tell it was the winner for the Goodreads like awards in 2020 because that, like, we had sunk so low as a society at that point that this was considered like, you know, prime reading material. So that shows how far society has plunged since the pandemic. So yes, this book was horrible. As you can tell, I do not recommend it. If I could give it 0 stars on Goodreads, I would, but alas, it's been given 1 star, and it's just so bad. Like, I was telling my boyfriend about it, and I was just about some of the stuff, and it was just like, yeah, so bad. So yeah, do not buy into the hype. Do not buy into the 4.3 average review rating for this book. I don't know why this got like really popular, but I think it was because of the pandemic, and you know, we went through all the good material at that point. So this one was just bad. The writing style was bad. Another drinking game you could do is if there's an ellipse, if Poppy gasps, if she decides that she hates Hawk or loves him, and so you would be thoroughly drunk within like 10 pages, basically. But yeah, this book was garbage. I don't even care about the big reveal because I guessed it very early on. It was very obvious. The writing in here is bad. Yeah, this book is just bad. So I do not recommend this, and I can feel my heart rate go up like talking about how much I hated this, because it was literally a waste of time, and I persevered. I pushed through to finish this for you guys for the sake of your entertainment, because yeah, do not recommend. Like, how does this book have praise? Yeah, don't listen to the reviews of any of these people here praising this book. So yes, it's trashy, vampire, poorly written. It is just overall bad, and I'm a little upset that I splurged to get the hard copy of this, because I'm like, oh, if I like it, then I'd like them all to be within the same set in the series. So yes, this is gonna find its way to half price books eventually. Once I do an unhaul, like, this will be first to go. So that's it, guys. I hope you enjoyed this kind of me slowly spiraling into how much I hate this book. It was honestly terrible, and just to save yourself from all this, do not even think about picking it up. If you want to have a good time, go check out the Goodreads 1-star reviews. I was doing that after I finished this last night, and they are very funny. So despite this having like a lot of good reviews, like for the most part, a lot of people do really hate this. So I feel like I'm not like, just like, despite not liking it, I feel like there's a lot of people who did not like this book, and the quality of it is just really bad. So at least I'm part of some bandwagon in terms of hating on this book. But yeah, I've just lost faith in humanity after reading this, because if this book is popular, like, the generation of TikTokers, like people who are on TikTok and Book Talk that are recommending this, like, our society is doomed, is basically what I'm thinking. But yeah, I'm just happy this is over and I can actually read something that I really enjoy. So yeah, give this video a thumbs up if you want to see more reactionary videos of me reading certain books or vlog styles for reading books. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, and I will see you guys next time. Bye, guys.